Crowd is revved up here at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia. No DeMarcus Ware. That could be extremely impactful in the outcome of this one without Ware chasing Nick Foles around. Philadelphia's won the toss, selected to receive. Jamaris Johnson waits on the kick from Dan Bailey. From Rocky, Bailey spins it away, and Johnson 7 yards out of his own end zone will bring it out. And did not reach the 20. He's tackled at the 18-yard line. Nick Foles grew up in Austin, Texas, went to Westlake High School, 24 years old. 3 weeks ago, replaced the injured Michael Vick in New York over the Giants. And led the Eagles to a pair of touchdowns in the fourth quarter in a come-from-behind win in his start last week against Tampa Bay. Good enough to be the NFC's Offensive Player of the Week. Threw for 3 touchdowns and ran for another.
Well, you saw his numbers there on the screen. The one number that you didn't see was the fact that he has not thrown an interception. That's been very key for them.
And immediately they put it in the hands of their best offensive weapon. That's LaShawn McCoy. McCoy leads the NFL in rushing yards. He's also lethal catching it out of the backfield.
Well, they showed Orlando Scandrick coming off the edge, and you know, Chip Kelly can come after you a lot of different ways, and one of the ways that you hold that backside defender when you don't have a runner like Michael Vick at quarterback is the swing pass they just ran.
Foles looking around and dropped. Wrapped up by George Selby. Well, what a pickup he's turned out to be. Meanwhile, for the Eagles offensively, talked about how good they've been this season, and it starts with McCoy.
Well, LaShawn McCoy has been terrific, coming off a big game last week in that win over Tampa Bay.
They pitch it to McCoy, slips a couple of tackles, and then shot down for a gain of maybe 4. It'll bring up 3rd down and 10. How about this Cowboy defense? All the changes along the defensive line.
Boy, a lot of changes. A lot of guys that weren't even on the roster when they came into the season, and yet Rod Marinelli has done an outstanding job as a defensive line coach getting that group prepared each week to come out and play. He's had to do it again this week without DeMarcus Ware.
Foles being chased by Carter. And throws incomplete. So on its opening possession of the game, the Eagles are forced to punt, and a flag comes in over where the tackle was made.
Intentional grounding, number 9, offense. The quarterback was out of the pocket, and the ball did not get back to the line of scrimmage. Penalty will include a loss of down, 4th down.
Well, you talked about the Cowboys defensive front. That time Bruce Carter, as the linebacker, he's able to get the pressure. He's the one who was in Nick Foles' face that forced him to try to get the ball out. They call him for intentional grounding, but a lot of pressure there on the first possession on Nick Foles.
Keep an eye on Dwayne Harris. Had a huge impact in the win over Washington last week. Had an 86-yard punt return for a touchdown. Return to kickoff 90 yards, leading to another. But good coverage here by the Eagles after a good punt from Donnie Jones. So Romo and the high-flying Cowboy offense will get the football when we return.
Today's game on Fox is sponsored by Southwest Airlines. Find our fares online only at southwest.com.
First down for Tony Romo and the Dallas Cowboys. Romo ranked 2nd in the league in touchdowns, 3rd in completion percentage, is thrown for the 7th most yards. Only 3 interceptions. Jason Witten. The gain of 6. The Cowboys without DeMarco Murray. Joseph Randle makes his first NFL start.
Well, he got his first carries last week when he came off the bench, and did a decent job, and he's going to play on early downs. 1st and 2nd downs. They're a little concerned with him in terms of protection on passing downs. They'll take him off the field, but The Eagles have struggled in pass coverage, and that's an area that the Cowboys are hoping to exploit.
Randall for the first time. Close to a first down. Appears to be about a half-yard short. The Eagles feel like they're making baby steps in improving this defense, but the numbers simply do not lie.
Well, they're coming off their best game last week against Tampa Bay. The problem is it was Tampa Bay, and Tampa doesn't have the firepower that the Cowboys have, but they have improved defensively here over the last couple of weeks. This will be a much better test for them in this game. You see Kyle Bosworth, he's a linebacker. He played some fullback last week in that win against the Redskins in these short yardage situations.
A second effort. It appears as though Tanner did not get to the first down marker. Met initially by D'Amico Ryans. Fourth down.
Well, D'Amico Ryans, he's in the hole unblocked. He's able to get a hit. Then on Tanner, without having to shield any kind of blocker. Just an excellent job defensively there by the Philadelphia Eagles. The Cowboys this season have been outstanding on their opening possession of a ball game. So for them to get off the field and force a 3-and-out, big.
Eagles having to spend a timeout.
Team's first 30-second timeout.
In fact, the Cowboys have scored on their opening drive in 5 of 6 games this year. They've scored the 3rd most points in the opening quarter among all teams this year. Chip Kelly, 49 years old, grew up in Manchester, New Hampshire. Of course, the last 4 years spent as head coach at the collegiate level for the Oregon Ducks. Lost 7 games in 4 years. They haven't lost since he left.
Well, he did a nice job in Oregon. I tell you, he's done a nice job here. I mean, the fact that they are tied with the Cowboys for first in the NFC East, a team within this division that not many people thought or expected much from coming into the year, already almost matching last year's win total.
Chris Jones, and a fair catch is made by Johnson inside the 10-yard line.
Is sponsored by Bud Light, official beer sponsor of the NFL.
You see B.W. Webb, and he's trying to get down the field, and Bradley Fletcher, he gets a hold of that hair, and there's nothing illegal about that, Tom. And you see that more and more. You see him, he's talking about it. Does not feel good.
Why you kept yours short?
Yeah, one of many reasons.
Second possession offensively for Philadelphia. Drive starting from its own 9-yard line. Foles slings it across the middle and caught by Riley Cooper, who had the first 100-yard receiving game of his career last week against Tampa Bay.
It's an outstanding job up front by the offensive line. He has time. Ball's normally out by now, but because he got great protection, he's able to come all the way back then to Riley Cooper, who does a good job of working back to the ball.
Cooper 4 catches, 120 yards, including a 47-yard touchdown last week. Back on the ground to McCoy, and that'll be a gain of close to 3.
You know, we saw both of these offenses first possession. You know, the Eagles are able to get a first down, and then they run 3 more plays and have to punt. The Cowboys go 3-and-out. I mean, here we came into the game talking about how good these offenses have been and how many yards the defense had given up. Both defenses doing a good job on the opening drive.
How about that move? Now, granted, only a 1-yard pickup. It could have easily been a 3 or a 4-yard loss for McCoy.
No, I think McCoy is one of those guys that even on a 1-yard run like that one right there, I mean, it's really something to watch. He's a special player. You know, he's oftentimes compared to Barry Sanders. I think it's fair. He's extremely elusive, even when they've got him corralled.
Third down. Foles rolling, and he will coast to a first down. Tiptoeing along the sideline, out of bounds at the 38-yard line. Now, Foles obviously does run like Michael Vick. Nobody runs like Vick, but he moves around pretty well.
Well, you're real careful to run man coverage if Michael Vick is the quarterback. Nick Foles, his best 40 time was a 4.9. I mean, that is slow, ladies and gentlemen. And so you're not worried as much about then getting into man coverage. But he shows if you don't contain him and you've got your back with receivers, he's going to be able to pick up key yardage.
Off the fingertips of the rookie tight end Zach Ertz. Highest drafted tight end by the Eagles, going all the way back to the great Keith Jackson out of Oklahoma in 1988. And they think Ertz has a chance to be a great one as well.
Oh, I think he does. I mean, he's not gotten a lot of balls his way. In fact, I thought that he would have more throws than he's been able to get at this point in the year. But I think he's going to be a fine player.
Bryce Brown just fell down. Looked like he had a little bit of running room there.
Yeah, he did. There was actually a pretty good lane, and Bryce Brown, I know in visiting with Chip Kelly, he shows flashes at various times in games where you get pretty excited about him, and then there's other times where he's been relatively inconsistent. But if he's able to keep his feet on that last play, it was a nice lane.
3rd down and 8. 7th play of the drive.
Yeah, here we go.
Walton Brown's way, and time to punt once more for the Eagles.
Cowboys continue a lot of man coverage. You're going to see Riley Cooper. He's running the crossing route. They have Sean Lee who comes up and cuts him off. Nick Foles reads it beautifully. He goes exactly where the ball has to go. Just unable to connect. But the Cowboys have been in good coverage here in this game.
Punting with an injured foot, left foot. Harris will let this one bounce. Penalty flag comes in from the Eagles side of the field. In fact, a pair of them. John Perry, our referee today here in Philadelphia.
During the kick, holding, return team, number 24. Result was a touchback. Ball would be placed at the 10-yard line, 1st and 10.
This game is sponsored by Ram Trucks, Guts, Glory, Ram. By KFC, the official sponsor of couchgating. KFC plus football equals couchgating. And by Visa, proud sponsor of the NFL. Visa, turning football fantasies into reality.
One of the great rivalries in all the NFL. Of course, that's a story whenever there's a game, seemingly, Troy, in the NFC East. Redskins, Giants, Cowboys, Eagles, they get after each other.
Well, it's always been a physical division, that's for sure. This year, of course, the division has been down, to say the least.
So after the penalty, Romo works out of the shotgun from his own 10. And that'll be a false start against Dallas.
False start, offense, number 68. 5-yard penalty, 1st down.
There's DeMarcus Ware, who is not playing today. The first start that he has missed in his NFL career. A guy who's been through a number of ailments this season. Unable to play, but he's very involved. They went ahead and traveled him here today, and he's going to help with some of these younger players.
134 consecutive games Ware had played in before today. Flags all over the field. Incomplete. Had an eye on Randall, but it looked like early movement once more on the right side of that Cowboys offensive line. A vastly improving offensive line from recent years.
At the snap, offside. Defense, number 91. 5-yard penalty. First down.
They got Fletcher Cox.
They'll get Fletcher Cox here, who's coming off a monster game last week and was able to get pressure in that game against Tampa Bay. He's going to be a real key in this ball game because Bill Davis, the defensive coordinator, would prefer not to have to bring extra people in order to get pressure on Tony Romo, but you've got to be able to get to him because otherwise this secondary will have a hard time holding up.
So after back-to-back penalties, we're right back where we started. 1st and 10. Romo throws too high with an eye on Dez Bryant, and for the first time today we check in back in Los Angeles with Joel Klatt. Hi, Joel.
Hey, Tom, and we go down to Atlanta. Mike Glennon, 3rd start in his NFL career and having some troubles. William Moore knocks the ball loose. Thomas Deku, the 30-yard fumble recovery for a touchdown. Atlanta up 7-0 early in that ball game. Back to Philly and Tom.
All right, Joel, thank you. 2nd and 10.
Well, you talk about a team needing a win. The Atlanta Falcons. As Tampa Bay does too.
You're going to say, hang on a minute. They have one more in the Bucks. Quick slant defended beautifully. Kerry Williams right there with Dez Bryant.
Kerry brought pressure off the edge, and then he came up limping after he got past Tony Romo. You're going to see him there on the left of the screen, and he's the one who forces Romo to get the ball out quick. Romo recognizing that he's unprotected, but you see Kerry Williams comes up hobbling. He stays in the game, however.
3rd and 10. Cole Beasley, and that'll be good enough for a first down up to the 21-yard line out of Little Elm, Texas. Played collegiately at SMU. He led the team with 44 receiving yards last week.
You can see him here. He's lined up off the ball, and one of the reasons why you do that as an offense is to keep the defense from being able to get a jam then on the receiver. You see he gets a clean release. He's able to pick up the first down. There's Dez on the backside. He's getting a lot of attention, as you can imagine. The Eagles know that they've got to be able to slow him down, who's an absolute beast.
Wide open Whitten, and that's up to the 47-yard line. Gain of 26.
You can see Whitten as he works across, and Tony Romo really helps him out because you see D'Amico Ryans, the linebacker, how he continued to run out towards the sideline. Romo looks him off and gets him flowing to the left. It opens up the lane then for Jason Whitten. Tony Romo does an outstanding job of moving defenders from within the pocket.
Whitten with 112 career receptions against Philadelphia. That's more than any other team for the future Hall of Famer. Beasley fell down. 2nd down and 10. Well, you know, you were talking about Blair missing his first career game. Whitten in his 11th season out of the University of Tennessee missed one game with a broken jaw going all the way back to 2003. Came back from a lacerated spleen last year to play in the opener. What a player.
Well, he's as tough as they come, and I know he prides himself on being counted on each and every week to play. And not only does he show up, but he plays well each and every Sunday. He's a great football player.
Romo calls the timeout. And granted a timeout. Saw the game last week where Drew Brees was trying to get a timeout and did not get it. Well, after last night's thrilling victory, the Boston Red Sox now take on the St. Louis Cardinals. Game 1 of the Fall Classic live from Fenway Park. Game 1 begins Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern, with a Fox Sports Live World Series special. That'll be over on Fox Sports 1. Then the first pitch at 7:30 Eastern Time, only on Fox. 4th time Cardinals and the Red Sox have played in the World Series. Of course, Red Sox fans will forever remember 2004. Red Sox sweeping St. Louis, and the Cardinals seemingly every other year playing in the World Series.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable what the Cardinals have been able to do, and even the Red Sox this year. Last year to come back and now be playing in the World Series, pretty awesome.
First running play of this drive, and Randall, his best carry in just his second game in the NFL. He had the 11 rushes, 17 yards, had his first career touchdown last week. He's out of Oklahoma State, and they took him in the 5th year of this year's draft.
Well, they set that up very well. They show that they're going to run off tackle to the offense's right side. They cut it back. They block it up nicely. Talked about that offensive line. They've been outstanding really throughout this year.
Randall again off to the left side. That'll be a gain of close to 5 depending on the spot.
One of the reasons, Tom, they've been so good is when they were able to finally talk Brian Waters out of retirement. Spent a lot of time talking to him throughout the summer to get him in uniform, and of course a 8-time Pro Bowler for the Kansas City Chiefs. He started his career back with the Dallas Cowboys when I was still playing as a tight end. He was an undrafted free agent out of North Texas. Cowboys release him. He goes on to Kansas City. They move him to offensive line. Smart move. Hall of Fame career.
Play action, and not buying any of that, DeMeco Ryans. Ryans has never beaten the Dallas Cowboys in his career. 0 for 4.
Well, DeMeco Ryans, he kind of gets lost, as you're going to see. He comes off of the scrape, and then they're trying to set up the screen to the backside. Romo usually, when he's able to navigate a free rusher, he's pretty elusive, hard to tackle in those situations. But DeMeco Ryans does an excellent job of getting the Eagles to 3rd and long. This is a down that the Eagles defensively had not been all that good on. They were much better last week. It helps when you're looking at 3rd and 19.
Williams, but short of the first down. But Dan Bailey has a big leg. See where they spot that ball at the 37. That'd be about a 55-yard field goal attempt. So they're going to go ahead and send out the punt unit.
It's interesting here. I even thought that maybe Jason Garrett would elect to go for it at this spot on the field. But even though the defense has been good, he knows what he's up against in this Eagles offense. Try to pin him back.
Very short punt. We were hoping to do better. If you're Jason Garrett, then giving him the ball to 15, but that's where the Eagles have it. No score.
Oh, who the hell are the Cowboys? We beat them every time we play them.
I would have said something to Buddy, but he wouldn't stand on the field long enough. He put his big fat rear end into the dressing room.
Some good stuff. Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles through the years. There was a hit that Tony Romo did not like at all after DeMeco Ryans had initially sacked him. That was Michael Kendricks who came sliding in and rammed him against the side of his head.
It didn't look like much to me, but I know these quarterbacks, they expect awfully good protection from these officials.
First down carry, good enough for a couple of yards to Bryce Brown. When we're talking about Brown, you may remember last year as a rookie, he had 2 games where he carried for better than 150 yards. One of them came against the Cowboys. 169 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Well, he's certainly capable of heating up. There's no doubt.
Well, they got their main man back in there, McCoy. And Foles looking for him down the sideline. Good coverage here by Carter.
Well, that's an interesting call. They got a flag down on the field. The San Diego Chargers ran that play against the Cowboys very successfully and against Bruce Carter. And here the Eagles try to match up with McCoy.
Prior to the pass being thrown, holding, defense, number 54, 5-yard penalty, automatic first down.
So they get Bruce Carter on the hold against LaShawn McCoy, but that's the wheel route that the Chargers were able to have some success against Bruce Carter on. He's a very athletic linebacker that can run as well as anybody in the league defensively, but he has had some problems in coverage this year.
Blitz coming. Foles able to stiff arm his way out of one would-be tackler, and it throws too high. Had an eye on Jason Avant, and he took a hit.
Well, Nick Foles is in trouble. He's scrambling out to the right, and then you've got Deshaun Jackson. He keeps working away from Nick Foles. He's got to turn around and get back in his line of vision in order to get the ball. There's a late hit there right into the neck. But you see, as Nick Foles gets out, he's looking for somebody to get open, but Deshaun Jackson's working away from him to the middle of the field, and that's just too dangerous of a throw. If he had just stopped, he probably would have got it.
Now they're trying to slip Jeff Mail inside. Mail played collegiately for Chip Kelly at Oregon. Only 3 catches all year long. Now a 3rd and 10.
Yeah, the Eagles, they've not really been able to get much going just yet. You know, they haven't gotten the running game going with LaShawn McCoy quite yet, or Bryce Brown. And Nick Foles, even when he's had some time, the Cowboys have been pretty good in coverage.
Here we go.
Foles going to run it. And caught from behind by Kyle Wilbur. So the Eagles forced a punt.
Well, that shows you Nick Foles' lack of speed. I mean, you're going to see Nick Foles, and the Cowboys, they cover everything up pretty well, but he's got a lot of room out in front of him with nobody there. And, if he could have run a little bit better, he's a little bit faster. But that's why the Cowboys are able to play some of this man coverage and not focus on what's happening in the pocket of the quarterback, unlike they would do against Vic.
Harris falls on it at the 30. So now the Cowboys, still in a scoreless game, come back out on offense. Tony Romo today making his 100th career start with a chance, a typical Tony Romo kind of a day. Would throw for more yards than any quarterback through 100 starts in the history of the NFL.
That's pretty remarkable. That's a pretty good list to be on. I know what kind of numbers he's been putting up, but when they said that last night, it was like, whoa.
Trent Cole following Randall off to the left side, and that'll be a gain of 2.
Well, Romo really is off to a great start again this year. He's obviously putting up terrific numbers, and in visiting with him yesterday, Tom, I just sensed a little different confidence about him. I know that he likes what his involvement is and his contributions to the things that they're doing offensively within the game plan, and he has really embraced his role. Of course, he's got a lot of money in the bank too with the big contract this offseason, but he just seems to be in a little different place right now than he's been in years past.
Offense, 5-yard penalty, 2nd down.
Of course, you look back, Romo, when he initially came out of college of Eastern Illinois as an undrafted free agent, they called him a young 33 because, look, for his first 3 years, he was basically a holder is all he did. And that game, many remember, the second half in a game against the Giants, took over for Drew Bledsoe at halftime, made his first start against Carolina the following week, and now his 100th start here today. 2nd down, Romo, incomplete. And an eye on Gavin Escobar, the rookie out of San Diego State. And let's check in once more with Joel Klatt.
All right, thanks, Tom. And we go to Washington, Chicago. Matt Forte, 2-yard TD run, all set up by the 6th interception of the year thrown by RG3. And Troy, RG3 continues to struggle.
Sunday night, I know that, and he has now more interceptions this year than he threw all of last year, and he looked better running the football, I know, last Sunday night, but it has been a struggle.
Just did get it off. 3rd down and 13. Romo lays it off for Beasley, trying to get to that 1st down marker. Did he get there? Very, very close. The Eagles are applauding as if to say he's short. He is short.
Well, that's a great job again by the Philadelphia Eagles defense. You know, Bill Davis said, hey, you know, at one time earlier in the year, they couldn't even get to third down. He says, now that we're getting to third down, we got to get off the field. And they have been able to do that.
Deshaun Jackson back to handle a punt. There is a penalty flag down. We have seen a pile of those already here today. Like everybody figured when we came in to watch the Cowboys and the Eagles, and this had a chance to be a shootout, and it still might be a shootout. One defense ranked dead last in the NFL, the other third from the bottom. And yet here we are nearly through an entire quarter. And a scoreless game as Jason Garrett is wondering what's going on the field, and Chip Kelly the same thing.
While the ball was in the air, holding on the kicking team. Philadelphia has elected a 10-yard penalty to be added to the end of the run. 1st and 10.
So what about it, Troy? I mean, you know, you look at these offenses and the way they've been going. Foles again replacing the injured Michael Vick. We talked about how hot Romo has been, yet the defenses have been very good.
Yeah, no, this is not what was anticipated when we came into this game because of how these offenses have been able to move the ball throughout the early part of this season. The defenses have struggled, but yet the defense has been really good. So, you know, whether or not that changes, we'll see. But right now, the Eagles certainly starting this drive anyway with outstanding field position.
The Eagles are coming off the win last week in Foles' first start of the season. We mentioned he threw for 3 touchdowns and ran for another score. And naturally, we'll get into the whole quarterback controversy. They call it a quarterback conversation. What a nice play made there by Orlando Scandrick as they put it in the hands of Deshaun Jackson for the first time, and right there to meet him, Scandrick.
Yeah, that's what you've got to do too against this Eagles offense. They like the quick passing game. They like to try to outflank you and get the ball to a guy like Deshaun Jackson in space, and the real key then is being able to make a tackle as soon as the ball is caught. Orlando Scandrick does an excellent job.
Set up the screen. McCoy dancing around, but bottled up. Selby wraps him up. That's good defense right there by the Cowboys. They saw it coming right from the start.
Well, it's good pursuit, and you really have to rally to LaShawn McCoy because you see how difficult it is for that first guy to be able to make a tackle. Now, I don't think Chip Kelly is real happy seeing that because he's commented a lot of times early in games, LaShawn McCoy dances a little too much, and he ends up losing yardage on that play instead of just taking the loss that would have been less than it was.
3rd and 18. And a catch is made by Ertz, but far short of a first down. So neither team doing anything of note offensively, and that's how both these teams have really, thanks in large part, that's why each has 3 wins. That's the end of the first quarter. We're scoreless. Fox NFL Sunday returns after these messages and a word from your local Fox station. Nothing going on offensively. This will be the 7th punt between the two teams already, and this will be the first play of the second quarter. Flag down already. Harris from the 28. And that's across the 35, but again, we wait on the flag.
There wasn't much hang time on that punt. Dwayne Harris, of course, coming off a huge game last week against the Redskins, but the Eagles rallied.
Holding, number 39, return team. 10-yard penalty from the end of the kick. 1st and 10.
It's Brandon Carr on Brandon Boykin.
Yeah, there's the hold, and that's what they get Brandon Carr for. So the Cowboys have had a couple penalties now on change of possession in the kicking game that's backed up their offense a little bit. But the Eagles certainly aware of Dwayne Harris in the game that he had last week, but even with a punt without much hang time, of course they get the penalty, but without that, do a nice job of rallying to the football.
Sevens wild here today. First catch of the game, and it could be a big one for Bryant. He's out across the 35 up to the 39-yard line.
Well, I commented earlier about how you got to make the tackle. The Eagles, or the Cowboys, do against Deshaun Jackson. Same holds true for the Eagles defensively. Connor Barwin is in a great position to converge on Des Bryant. He just fails to make the tackle, and that's really kind of when the fun begins watching this guy. I mean, he's gotten better as a route runner, but his competitiveness, his ability to make the tough catches and run after the ball is in his hands is what makes him so special.
Gain of 19 and looking for Whitten. And it's incomplete. Second down and 10. And we'd like to tell you, coming up in November, some cops are born, others are made. Get ready for the next evolution of cop drama. Don't miss a show critics are calling obsession worthy, and one of the best new series this fall. Almost Human premieres Monday, November 4th, only on Fox. Of course, Des Bryant had that breakout year they've been waiting on. Had 92 catches for nearly 1,400 yards a season ago.
No safety in the middle of the field here, Tom. It looks like they're going to come.
And they are coming. And able to get it away with an eye on Austin was Romo. But in full pursuit, it was Nate Allen.
Yeah, they give the look as they're going to go with a zero blitz. No middle safety. Tony Romo's certainly aware of that, but then you're going to see guys bail out. So they show that they're coming, and then they try to run underneath everything. And, Bill Davis said one of the areas where they've gotten better is in the way that they've been able to disguise their coverages. Remember, this is a defense that is going from a 4-3 scheme for so many years to this 3-4 look. And there's a lot to learn in that process, and they're going through that transition, but they have improved in some areas, one of which is their ability to disguise the looks.
Cowboys 1 of 4 on third down. This one a 3rd and 10, and sacked all the way back to the 28-yard line is Romo. Vinny Curry, who's getting more and more playing time, and he's earning that playing time.
Yeah, Vinny Curry, you're going to see he comes around. They run a little bit of game, and initially Ronald Leary, the left guard, he gets hit with 2 guys right there. Curry comes, and then he's got another one. He comes off of Curry. Curry gets freed up right in the face of Romo.
Chris Jones. Short punt. A fair catch made by Damaris Johnson at the 30-yard line. Frustration beginning to build for both offenses. We're scoreless in Philadelphia.
Today's game on Fox is sponsored by DirecTV. If you call yourself a sports fan, you gotta get DirecTV. By Corona, who invites you to find your beach this football season. And by Papa John's, official pizza sponsor of the NFL.
Ah, yes. Gotta have that Philly cheesesteak. Cowboys and Eagles each with 3 wins. Now, granted, it's come against lesser competition. In the 3 losses, each of these teams has lost to 3 teams from the AFC West. As McCoy is off to the right side for maybe 2 yards. Both the Eagles and the Cowboys have lost to unbeaten Kansas City, to unbeaten Denver, and to the San Diego Chargers. Couple of carries and a good job defensively for Dallas, slowing down the NFL's leading rusher, LaShawn McCoy. That's 5 carries for only 13 yards.
Well, the only team that's been able to slow down LaShawn McCoy this year is the New York Giants. And last week, as I said, the discussion was how well will they be able to run the ball without Vic. Last week against Tampa, they ran the ball very well, but there's been nothing from McCoy in this game.
1 of 5 on third down. Foles gets it away. Bouncing off a tackle is Cooper, and he'll pick up the first down. He ran right through the rookie J.J. Wilcox. That's a big, strong man, Riley Cooper.
Well, J.J. Wilcox, he recognizes it. He's in man coverage. He's in a perfect position to make a play short of the first down. And, you know, this is really Wilcox's strength. He likes to hit, but he doesn't make the play.
Boyd tries to cut it back to the inside, and there's Jason Hatcher playing the best football of his career.
Jason Hatcher has been an animal, you know, throughout the early part of this year. I mean, it's amazing that for a guy playing defensive tackle, he leads the team in sacks. He's near the top in quarterback pressures. He's been outstanding.
Boy out of the backfield, fell down trying to turn it up the field. And he's at the 47-yard line, which brings up 3rd down and 4. I mean, you look at all the injuries on the defensive front for Dallas going back to training camp. Tyrone Crawford, Anthony Spencer. They just released this week 4-time Pro Bowl nose tackle Jay Ratliff. DeMarcus Ware not playing today. So Hatcher, the only guy they figured to be in their plans when training camp began. Good protection this time. And thrown behind Mayo right at the first down stick.
Well, like I said, neither offense has just been able to get a whole lot going. You know, they haven't been able to run the football, and they got a chance, but you've got to be able to get the ball a little bit out in front. Certainly should have been caught. Deshaun Jackson on the outside with single coverage thought he had an opportunity, but Nick Foles is just thinking about picking up the first down in that situation.
5th punt of the game for the Eagles. And this one will be down inside the 10 at the 7-yard line. For field position for the Cowboys in this scoreless game. #109th meeting here today between the Cowboys and the Eagles. Deshaun Jackson, a very quiet opening quarter. Of course, you could say that for their entire offense. Jackson already with 3 100-yard receiving games this season. Today only 1 catch for -1 yard. Randall spun down after a gain of 2, and let's check in with Kurt Menefee.
All right, there have been 4 defensive touchdowns in the league already today. The latest being Brian Arakpo off the hands of Alshon Jeffrey from Jay Cutler. The pick 6, 29 yards. Skins lead at 17-10. Tom and Troy.
I know. We got you a little confused. I mean, I'm in here keeping a seat warm for Joe.
Kurt.
Joe, of course, will be calling the World Series with Tim McCarver beginning on Wednesday night. Back-to-back carries for the rookie Randall, and this is his first NFL start.
Well, Tom, you talk about these two offenses. I mean, you're looking at the Cowboys coming into this game with the 2nd-ranked scoring offense in football. The Eagles are 4th-ranked scoring offense, and you know, neither team not only has not come away with any points, but really has had a hard time even moving the football. Both these defenses, to our surprise, have held up very well.
Out a catch by Williams along the sideline. It is up to the 38-yard line. The rookie out of Baylor. He's come up big with the injury to Miles Austin.
Yeah, he really has. He's a big receiver. You see the hand checking going on down the sideline, and Romo puts it on the back shoulder. He adjusts to the ball. Kerry Williams just is playing the receiver, never turns to try to locate the football. But you know, even Tony Romo, when talking about Terrence Williams, he said, you know, look, I really thought this guy was about a year away, and came into week 1, struggled against the Giants, ran the wrong route, ball intercepted, but the last few games he has really contributed.
And Randall out across the 40 up to the 41-yard line. You know, Williams, it goes to show you how sometimes, you know, they're wrong about guys. This guy was a 2-star recruit. Only 2 schools offered him a full ride. Baylor and Colorado State. goes to Baylor, has an unbelievable career, and already making a name for himself in the NFL.
Well, he had a good coach in college with Art Briles, and then he had a pretty good quarterback too. The guy playing for the Redskins in RG3, and that's helped. And Terrence Williams is a guy who's coming along very nicely.
Running the ball a little bit more this time, the Cowboys on his drive. Bring up another third down. They had the pass play to Williams to convert 3rd and 5 a moment ago.
Well, you see Joseph Randle now leaving the field here on 3rd down, and so they bring in Philip Tanner. As I said earlier in the game, that one of the hardest things for a rookie running back is learning the various protections, all the things you see on 3rd down. Philip Tanner, much more accomplished in that area, and he'll be your 3rd down back.
Flag down. Looking for Des Bryant. Williams with good coverage here, but we go back to the penalty flag at the line of scrimmage.
Kerry Williams hadn't seen a ball thrown in his direction yet. He has yet to turn and try to play the ball.
Illegal formation. Offense. Number 77 is not on the line of scrimmage. Penalties declined. Result in the play. 4th down.
It's Tyron Smith, their 3rd-year left tackle.
That's Tyron Smith, and the helmet has to break the belt of the center. And a lot of these, especially on 3rd down, these defensive pass rushers, knowing that it's a passing down, they're coming after them, and these tackles try to get an advantage and set deeper, but they call Tyron Smith.
Coming way up the field, this one is Johnson at the 25-yard line. 8:11 to play until halftime. Still no score.
This game is sponsored by Ford. Only Ford gives you EcoBoost fuel economy and a whole lot more.
You see Tony Romo, he's talking to Des Bryant as well as head coach Jason Garrett, and Jason Garrett doesn't call the offensive plays anymore. Bill Callahan's upstairs, and he spends a lot of time on the sidelines with former NFL quarterback Wade Wilson, but Romo trying to communicate what he sees out there on the field and maybe some of the things they can get to.
Give it to McCoy. How about that closing speed there by Sean Lee?
Sean Lee is a fabulous football player. In fact, even Chip Kelly said, hey, this guy's as good as I've seen. And Rod Marinelli, who was there in Chicago with Brian Urlacher and Derek Brooks at Tampa Bay, said he's as good as any of them. And he's an old school linebacker. He played the 4-3 scheme when he was in college at Penn State. He adjusted to the 3-4 scheme under Rob Ryan. But as he said, doesn't matter the scheme. If you're a great linebacker, you make plays, and he does.
Short game. Brings up a 3rd down and long once more for the Eagles.
Yeah, we're so used to seeing the Eagles offensively get the ball in the hands of their playmakers, in space, and that just really has not been the case here in this first half. McCoy, every time he's gotten the ball, especially running the football, has been nowhere for him to go, and they do such a great job spreading people out, but the Cowboys have been able to hang in there.
Flag down behind the line of scrimmage. Pass incomplete to Jason Avant. Normally that's the area where you see a hold.
Illegal use of hands. Hands to the face. Number 79. Penalties declined. Result of the play. 4th down.
So 3 and out for the Eagles.
Well, they need, hey, we saw the Cowboys leave after their last possession. Now the Eagles, they come out, they're unable to get anything going. As you see, Todd Harriman's the right guard, and eventually frustration starts to set in with two offenses that are accustomed to moving the football a heck of a lot better than they have in this game.
Good punt chasing Harris back to the 25 and run out of bounds at the 37. Well, if Ware can't be here, he must be doing something right. Maybe a future in coaching. He's coaching them up, and the Dallas defense looking strong midway through the 2nd quarter. Well, it's about much more than pink on the field. Together, the NFL and the American Cancer Society are helping women across the country make a crucial catch Hear the personal impact stories, how you can help finish the fight against breast cancer at NFL.com/pink. Great stuff, the NFL and the American Cancer Society. Well, how about that? Miles Austin was down there tying the shoe of his buddy Brian Waters. That's when you know you've been a veteran around the league for a while. You got other guys tying your shoe.
Yeah, he didn't have to come to training camp, and he doesn't have to tie his own shoes.
Beasley spins out of one tackle, and up to midfield is Cole Beasley. Take a look at the first half scoring. These two teams ranking in the top 4 in the league, and neither one with a point on the board so far, closing in on 6:30 to play until halftime.
Good, good, good. 95. What's the count, Monday? Monday.
Des Bryant somehow hung on to the football. Took a hit from Nate Allen. Williams in coverage, but a Dallas first down.
You know what's interesting is Nate Allen, he's the free safety. They're playing single high safety, and Nate Allen was cheated to the other side of the field on the other hash because the Cowboys, had 2 receivers to that side, but you've got Des Bryant one-on-one. They come back to him, and as you watch this, you say, man, if you're going to single up Des Bryant, he should have a heck of a game, but that's just his second catch, I believe.
Back on the ground with Randall. And he's to the 34-yard line. Looks like Connor Barwin is flipping around a little bit. They brought him as a free agent from Houston during the offseason. Former tight end in college his first 3 years. How about that? Senior year, make the shift over to defense. Turned out to be a pretty good move. Brian Kelly, then the head coach of the Cincinnati Bearcats.
He's been a good acquisition for this Eagle team. Plays hard.
Inside the 25, that's good enough for a first down on the catch by Williams. And Dallas now knocking on the door.
Well, they're starting to get it going a little bit now, and as the Eagles, as they single up these receivers, I know in visiting with Tony Romo, this was one of the defenses that does play a lot of one-on-one with the skill players, and he was looking forward to this matchup, and they had not been able to really do much with it. Of course, Bill Davis mixing it up a little bit, but on the completions that they've had here on this possession, they have not been given any help to the outside, and it doesn't look like they're going to give any help on this play either. Everybody across the board singled up.
Dangerous throw there by Romo into traffic. Connor Barwin closing on Romo and put a hit on him.
Yeah, they got the look, I think, that they're wanting, but the Cowboys run the slant routes, and so Connor Barwin, he's untouched. He's able to get in Romo's face, but even if he had not have had the pressure, really not a whole lot there. I mean, so far, the Cowboys, when they've had looks where you can take advantage of some things down the field, whether it's on the outside or inside on the seam routes, they've not had those routes called. When they've gotten the good looks that you can take advantage of some of those things, maybe Romo will check to it.
Well, they have to call a timeout, play clock all the way down to 5. So this is the deepest penetration throughout this entire game for either team. And that's one area of distinct difference, Troy, between these two teams, is even though both are high-scoring teams, when the Cowboys get into the red zone, they have been really good so far this year.
Well, they've got guys, Jason Witten is obviously a big red zone threat. You've got Des Bryant, who's able to go up over people. It's, you've got DeMarco Murray they had in the past who could run the football. So they've got some weapons where a lot of teams, just aren't afforded that type of personnel to take advantage of it. But this is certainly, relative to what we've seen here in this first half, this is an important stop here defensively for the Eagles, who have done a nice job, as we've talked about, in not giving up more than a field goal opportunity.
Did the guys on Fox Sports Live comment that you look very presidential today?
They did.
You really do.
I always bring my presidential look to Philadelphia.
And I know they appreciate it here.
Yeah, I bet they do.
Second down and 10. Randall bounces off one tackle and gets to the 20, so it'll bring up a third down and almost 7. Tell you folks, you come in to town with Troy Aikman, and we talked about this rivalry between the Eagles and the Cowboys. I want to tell you, you would think that Troy Aikman was quarterbacking the Cowboys tomorrow.
They don't forget, right?
No, they don't.
Yeah, those are the kind of hits that I used to have to take when I was coming here. Only back then it was the vet and not the link.
Play clock down to 3. Blitz coming. Get it away. And played beautifully there by Bradley Fletcher. On Terrence Williams, Romo got the throw off, and he knocks it away, and out comes the field goal unit.
Yeah, all man across the board, no safety in the middle. They're just locked up, and that's asking a lot. You bring Nate Allen on the safety blitz, and then you've got Fletcher who has to be able to hold up against the rookie Terrence Williams, and he does. And so the Eagles have given the Cowboys some looks that typically they will exploit, but they've been unable to do that throughout this game.
Dan Bailey has missed his twice all year long. This from 38 yards. And it is good. So the first points with 3:17 to play until halftime. It's a field goal and not a touchdown.
Well, you can see that I talked about, when you're an offense that's accustomed to moving the football and scoring points, not just the Cowboys, but also with the Eagles, and you struggle and you have days like this where you're just not able to take advantage. Des Bryant, certainly he's frustrated. He's seeing some one-on-one coverage, and he doesn't think anybody in this league can cover him one-on-one. And when you're not taking advantage of those types of things, then frustration sets in, and well, you've got to manage that. And Romo has to be able to at least let his teammates know that he's okay. And if they see frustration from him, it's only going to add to it. And he's certainly having conversation with Jason Garrett, as you would expect. They worked hand in hand there for many years as the offensive coordinator and quarterback, and then Garrett had been calling the plays up until this year. So certainly a tremendous working relationship between those two.
Hey, by the way, we were talking about Tony Romo and making his 100th start today, and how with a good day he could become the all-time yardage leader. He has become the career leader in completions by a quarterback in the Super Bowl era in his first 100 games. Almost 2,300 of them. All right, Kurt Menefee, we know the Visa halftime's coming up. How about it?
Coming up on the Visa halftime, we'll see if Tom Brady can keep Boston in a celebratory mood as the Patriots take on the Jets. It's a battle of first-place teams as the Bengals visit the Lions, and the Jaguars will try to get that first win of the season. Plus, I'll go out and join those guys because I don't think I'm really supposed to be in here. It's all on the Visa halftime.
Of course, you and I were a part of that miracle Sunday last week in Boston. The touchdown pass, Brady to Tompkins, and then that night, the grand slam by Big Papa.
It was a great night to be in Boston, wasn't it?
Sure was. All right, now 3:17 to play until the half. The Eagles have 2 timeouts remaining, and they put it in the hands of the boy who's had a very quiet first half. That's a nice play made by Barry Church. You may remember he got injured very early last season, his first year as a starter.
Well, as I said, Tom, offensively now, even though neither team has really done much offensively, what they haven't done is they haven't turned the ball over. And, both of these defenses have been good at creating takeaways.
Wide open was Selleck, and they missed him. First time we've called the name of Selleck.
Well, it doesn't get any easier than that, and Nick Foles knows that he missed one. And those are the ones that you just absolutely have to hit. No excuse for it. No pressure in the pocket. Brent Selleck just wide open on the corner route. Just an errant throw. You know, and Nick Foles came into this game completing 67% of his passes, so he's got an accurate arm.
Looking for Selleck again, and a flag comes down. I think they got J.J. Wilcox.
There was certainly contact at the top of that route.
Prior to the pass being thrown, holding, defense, number 27, 5-yard penalty, automatic first down.
He's up here, and you're going to see, I talked about J.J. Wilcox a little bit earlier. His game really is how physical he is. And, you know, and he likes to grab, he likes contact. That's what he's about. And he gets, you know, called for the hold on that play on Brent Selleck. You know, Brent Selleck is someone who has been asked to do a little bit more than he's been having to do in years past. He's been more of a blocker in some of the things that they've done within their scheme. And Chip Kelly says probably the most underrated player they have.
Foles looking down the middle. Not quite sure who that was intended for. He had a couple of guys in the area code in Avant and McCoy.
Yeah, well, Foles talked about how, you know, he was a basketball player. He's 6'6", and he always thought he was going to go on and play, you know, basketball, and then eventually obviously went on to play football. But he compares this offense to basketball because he distributes the football, but he has not distributed very well.
He's having a tough day. Going to keep this one himself. And out to the 32-yard line. It'll bring up third down. 2:20 to play until halftime. The Eagles have 2 timeouts remaining, down 3-0.
Well, that backside defender, when they're not worried about the threat of the run, then they're able to collapse and converge then on the running back, and you've got to keep them honest. And they tried to keep him honest with Foles, and, you know, he's hobbling around a little bit. There's no doubt that they tell him, all right, get what you can and then get out of bounds or get on the ground. He does that, but he is hobbled, and Matt Barkley then is the backup right now.
We're at the 2-minute warning. 3-0 and a third down coming up. Foles out there at quarterback, a third down and 5. 2 minutes to play until halftime, and the Eagles with the ball at their own 32-yard line. And thrown behind a wide open Jason Avant. Foles, who has been so sharp and so accurate in a start and a half, and he's missed a lot of open receivers today.
Yeah, he has, and we saw him limping, Tom. 2 weeks ago, he strained a groin muscle. He was listed last week on the injury report, not this week. And you wonder if that is what's bothering him, and maybe if that's impacting his ability then to step and throw, because he's missing some throws that are relatively easy and throws that he usually makes.
By Donnie Jones. And Harris up across the 25-yard line. 1:43 to play until the half, and we check in Los Angeles with Joel Klatt.
Thank you, Tom. Some NFL history. Devin Hester in Washington, taking this one all the way back to the right side of the field, and he is gone. 81 yards for the punt return touchdown. His 19th return for a touchdown in his career, ties Deion Sanders to the NFL record and ties the game at 17. Tom.
Well, they're certainly going to need that after Jay Cutler did not look good going back into the Chicago locker room with an injury.
Well, the Redskins return an interception for a touchdown. The Bears return the favor with Devin Hester, and that guy's amazing.
Really is. Is that a catch? No. That was almost an unbelievable catch by Bryant. I think he's saying he caught it. Or maybe he was interfered with.
We'll take a closer look at it and see what happens with the ball as he goes to the ground. And yeah, I thought he caught it too, and he's asking for a challenge. We're inside of 2 minutes here. Yeah, I thought he had his hand underneath the ball, and great body control and working back to catch this. Strong hands. It looks to me, Tom, like he had possession of it and the ball did not move.
Screen to Tanner. Williams able to drag him to the ground. That's up to the 32-yard line. Third down. Cowboys have 1 timeout remaining, and we're under a minute and a half, and they're in hurry-up mode. Looking for Bryant. No flag.
A lot of contact on that play as well, and you see it. That's one of the reasons why they brought in a guy like Kerry Williams to match up against someone like Des Bryant. They wanted tall, rangy corners that could get physical with a physical wide receiver with size, such as Des Bryant, Akeem Nixer in New York, and these officials are letting them play. Tony Romo certainly felt there should have been a flag on the play.
That possession took all of 31 seconds for the Cowboys. Going to be down by Harris. Looked like he touched the ball at the 22-yard line. Well, you were talking about Nick Foles being a hoops guy originally growing up in Austin, Texas.
You know, he said he always thought that he was going to go on and play college basketball, and here's Nick Foles at a charity basketball game, still gets out and plays. And you talk to guys, and he's an outstanding player. He says that he was dunking the basketball. Certainly he can now at 6'6". He was dunking the basketball in 8th grade when he was 6'1". So he's got some leaping ability.
So he's got
can't run. Well, he can't run real fast, but he can jump. So.
Boy, he took a lick, and a strike delivered to Deshaun Jackson out of bounds at the 38-yard line. That's Kyle Wilbur who delivered that blow.
Kyle Wilbur, he's able to come in and get the hit on Nick Foles, and Kyle Wilbur, who's playing in place of DeMarcus Ware, came in last week in that game against the Redskins and really did a nice job. Good speed rusher off the edge.
And now Hatcher dragging Foles to the ground back at the 32. And the clock stops.
Well, Hatcher's right here. He loops around, and there's some room for Nick Foles to be able to navigate this pocket. But what a job by Jason Hatcher. Talked about what he's been able to do this year. And, you know, this whole Monty Kiffin scheme, as we know, going back to the Tampa Bay days, they say, hey, you got to have a dominant defensive tackle there in the middle. And Jason Hatcher has been more than that for the Cowboys. He's been outstanding. Think of Warren Sapp and all those great years, those great defensive teams for Tampa Bay. And he gives them a real presence in the middle. Not many guys can block this man one-on-one.
You know, but you take a look at this Cowboys defensive line. George Selvey did not play football last year. Nick Hayden did not play in the NFL last season. Wilbur, a 4th-round pick, next to 0 playing time all of last year. In fact, Wilbur, along with Tyrone Crawford, are the only defensive linemen Dallas has drafted in the last 4 years. They have all these guys hurt, bringing in guys off the street.
You know, all these different defensive linemen you talk about. And Rod Marinelli said he's having the time of his life coaching them up. I mean, he's really enjoying the challenge each week. And who better to do that job than Marinelli?
Defense, number 51, went into the neutral zone, which caused the reaction by the left tackle. 5-yard penalty, 2nd down.
They just get Kyle Wilbur for, you know, being in the neutral zone. But 2 of those guys that you talked about, Nick Hayden and George Selvey, I know Rod Marinelli says, hey, these guys, they were on the streets out of football, as you said, but they're starters in this league. He's been very impressed with them.
Screen to McCoy with blockers in front. And that's good enough for a 1st down, close to midfield up to the 49-yard line. Clock stops, 43 seconds left.
Really the first time that LaShawn McCoy is able to get the ball out in space with some ability to do what he does best and make people miss. And, you know, that penalty then on Wilbur, obviously pretty big. Don't pick up the 1st down there without it.
Foles. Catch made by Riley Cooper. Clock continues to run. He was trying to sprint to the sideline and fell down. We're at 30 seconds to play. The Eagles have 1 timeout left. Ball at the 41. Once more to Cooper. Defended well there by Morris Claiborne. He's popped that ball right out of the hands of Cooper.
Yeah, that's usually the ball that Riley Cooper will make, and he had an outstanding game last week, and these are the types of routes where he's good on. He's not going to beat a lot of people down the field, but when he's able to use his size and come back to the football, he's pretty effective then with that. But a ball that was put on him, he's just unable to make the play.
So 20 seconds remain. It's a 3rd down and 1. Pulls out of the shotgun, looking down the field to Jackson. Great coverage by Brandon Carr.
You see Deshaun Jackson, and he gets one-on-one with Brandon Carr. Brandon Carr coming off his best game last week as well, and they say, hey, we're going to let you single up Deshaun Jackson in this situation. And Deshaun Jackson has some real burners, and he can usually run by some people. Foles doesn't keep it really in play to give him a chance to try to make a play on the ball.
Well, the crowd booing the decision by Kelly, who has a timeout left, a 4th and 1. Why not try to get a little bit closer, spend a timeout? Instead, this will be a 60-yard field goal try. His career long is 51. Curious decision there by Chip Kelly. And now all of a sudden you're giving the Cowboys the football right at midfield, where they throw one completion, take a timeout, and a legitimate chance to kick a field goal before the end of the half.
Yeah, I think if Chip Kelly had that one to do over, he would have gone for it there on 4th down. 9 seconds now. This defense is going to have to make a stop. You get one play, and what the Cowboys do a pretty good job of in this situation as a defense, you don't want to give up the big play. So, the Cowboys will try to get a quick pass off and at least make sure they're in position to get the ball either into the end zone, for a Hail Mary, or if they're able to pick up enough yardage here on this play and call the timeout and still kick the field goal.
They've got a field goal kicker with plenty of leg in Bailey. The more angles you look at that decision.
Offense, number 68, 5-yard penalty, 1st down.
It's Doug Free. The more angles you look at that decision, that is a very curious decision by Chip Kelly. You've got a field goal kicker who's not kicked one from beyond 50. You're going to try from 60. You can go for it. If you don't get it, the other team gets the ball where they are right now anyway.
He's had to have seen him make that kick in practice.
All right, Cowboys with a timeout left. Romo, great protection. And a flag is down. He slides down at the 50, and the flag is going to stop it. I think this is against the Eagles.
Well, it may be, but because that play took so long to run, he's going to get one more shot.
Illegal contact, defense, number 22, 5-yard penalty from the end of the run, automatic 1st down.
Yeah, there's the contact by Brandon Boykin in the slot on Miles Austin, and Romo then asking, hey, because he called timeout as soon as he went to the ground. He says, well, do I still have my timeout? It's not going to matter. He's got 3 seconds on the clock. He's going to have to, throw this one up and take his chances.
Well, the Eagles have 3 defenders standing inside of the 20-yard line already, including the 6 feet 4 inch Connor Barwin. Now Romo spins, throws, Bryant in the end zone, intercepted by Earl Wolf. That's his first career interception. And that's the way a very unusual first half comes to an end. 2 of the highest scoring teams in the league. And it is 3-0 Dallas at halftime. We now go to Kurt Menefee in Los Angeles for the Visa halftime, which starts right now.
Boys, win on three. 1, 2, 3. Win.
All quiet on the Eastern Front so far here today. Follow your favorite team all season long. Just go to iTunes.com/NFL. Cowboys will get the football to begin the second half with a 3-0 lead. Tony Romo hitting on 11 out of 23, 160 yards, and threw the interception, the final play on the Hail Mary to end the opening half. And Harris, who had a 90-yard kickoff return a week ago, into the open field, and a good return up to the 35-yard line. And we check in with Pam.
Well, Tom, two high-powered offenses grounded. I asked both coaches how they plan to get it unstuck. First, for the Cowboys, Jason Garrett told me we need to take better advantage of those one-on-one opportunities. They've been there. We've just got to capitalize. Chip Kelly told me that we are just completely out of sorts. He thinks Foles is doing an okay job, but we could probably help him out with what we're doing. Back to you.
All righty, Pam, thank you very much. Foles hitting on 11 of 23 like Romo, but only 80 yards. First scoreless half as a head coach ever for Chip Kelly.
Well, you heard Pam talk about Jason Garrett say, hey, we haven't taken advantage of the one-on-one matchups. You just wonder how long Philly will hold up with that coverage.
New wrinkle there as they pitch it to Dwayne Harris on a first down carry, and some of the numbers not what we expected.
No, they're not. And hey, you know, Monty Kiffin, who came over from USC, and Chip Kelly at Oregon, and when those teams met with Chip Kelly as the head coach against Monty Kiffin, defensive coordinator, the Ducks averaged over 600 yards and 50 points. A lot of discussion coming into this game as to how Chip Kelly would exploit Monty Kiffin's defense. You know, that has not happened. Monty Kiffin obviously winning that first half.
Blitz coming on Romo. Steps up, delivers, and it's caught for a first down. That's Dez Bryant into Eagles territory at the 47-yard line.
With Fletcher Cox, he is able to get pressure in the middle on Tony Romo, makes him scramble. It's one of the things that Tony does exceptionally well, is that even when he has to scramble, whether he's just sliding in the pocket or even on the move outside the pocket, he is always looking to get the ball out of his hands, and he does an excellent job of still being able to see the entire field.
Into the hands of Randall. Cuts it back to the inside. That's good, strong running there by the rookie Joseph Randall to the Eagles' 42-yard line.
Well, the Cowboys come out here on this opening possession to start the second half. They got a little momentum going. They're starting to put together some plays, and you know, we talked about it throughout the first half. Philadelphia defensively coming into this game, the last ranked defense in terms of yardage given up, held up well, but how long can that continue? They're going to need some help from their offense.
Randall again. And he's to the 40. It'll bring up a third down and 2. I mean, it's not only how bad these defenses have been. You know, you talk about points per game allowed. One team giving up 25, the other team giving up 29. We talked about how prolific their offenses have been. So naturally you're thinking, all right, you mesh those two things together. I don't think anybody saw 3-0.
No, but yet some of those defensive numbers, they get a little inflated when you've played the Denver Broncos.
Yes, they do.
As both of these teams know.
Of course, that game against the Cowboys, one of the great NFL games to watch a couple of Sundays ago. And that is a first down reception by Bryant inside the 30.
The Eagles, they decide to try to bring middle pressure, and then again, that means you're one-on-one outside. Now, even though the Cowboys have completed passes, we've seen a couple completions now to Dez Bryant. They haven't really gotten him the ball with his ability to run after the catch, and so they've completed some passes versus these one-on-one looks. But the Eagles haven't gotten hurt too bad yet by it.
What you want to do? We got
They've had an eye on him 10 times. He's been the target of Romo. First down at the Eagles 29. Randall out of the backfield makes a reception. And that's a gain of 8 on first down.
Here's Trent Cole, who's one of those guys who's had to transition from a down lineman to an outside linebacker. Some guys make that transition smoother than others. It's been a lot on Trent Cole, and a guy who has taken a lot of pride in his ability to get after the passer, doesn't always rush the passer. He's had to learn some coverages, has yet to get a sack this year, but he does play with great effort each weekend. There he is now in coverage.
7th play of the drive. Romo steps up and finds Dez Bryant inside the 5, trying to get to the end zone, and stepped out of bounds at the 2.
We're just talking about Trent Cole. He's initially the one who's trying to run with Dez Bryant on the crossing route. A couple of other guys trying to pick him up. As you see at the end of that play as to where exactly he was when he went out, but Dez Bryant's been able to get some balls thrown to him. I'm sure he probably had a little bit of a conversation with Tony Romo and some of those coaches and letting them know what kind of coverages he was seeing there in that first half and getting some more opportunities here on this possession.
Looking for Dez Bryant. He's looking for a flag on Bradley Fletcher that does not come.
Well, they really have let these guys mix it up a little bit. You see, there's, I've seen a lot worse than that, called in this league, but the officials have been consistent today in that they've let these guys play, and it's been an advantage for the Eagles because that time Fletcher, and then also we've seen Kerry Williams get his hands on these receivers also.
Well, they've got the linebacker Bosworth back in there in the I formation in front of Tanner. They fake it to Tanner. It's blown dead before it ever got started. So it'll be a false start. Dallas going to get backed up 5 yards.
Well, penalties have really been an undoing of the Cowboys in this game. This is their 10th penalty if it's against them.
False start. Offense, number 68. 5-yard penalty. Second down.
Well, Doug Free had more penalties than any lineman in the NFL last year. That's the 3rd time they've gotten him today.
Well, they come in and you're going to see Doug Free is right here at right tackle. He's the guy that they got moving. A good call. And they come in with Kyle Bosworth. This was the 5th time he's played in the last 2 games. They've thrown it the first 4 times. On that one, they were trying to use it as play action. Only they get Doug Free with the false start. Dez Bryant one-on-one again up top.
They go to Beasley, who's run out of bounds by Brandon Boykin, so it brings up 3rd down and goal from the 5.
It's a good job at the end of this play by Brandon Boykin. Beasley gets the ball, and he's got great quickness. He's trying to plant his foot in the ground and come underneath, hoping that Boykin would overrun the play, but he's able to get Beasley out of bounds.
This is where through the years Jason Witten has been so lethal for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, the Cowboys have been outstanding this year in the red zone, 4th best in the NFL.
That one just thrown into traffic, and a flag comes in very late from the corner of the end zone. And this is going to be against Philadelphia. That'll set up a 1st and goal.
You see the right arm. He comes in and he turns him, and that's what the official sees.
Defense. Number 24. Hooking to the body. Automatic 1st down.
Once the body turns, you saw Bradley Fletcher come in, with the right arm. And as soon as the body moves, that's what the official has seen. I thought there's been, as we talked about, I think there's been more contact on some other plays that they've not gotten a call on than there was on that play.
Well, they've got Bosworth back in there. They've got Tanner back in there. Tanner will find the end zone. It looked like from here it is a touchdown for Philip Tanner. That'll be his 1st touchdown of this season. And Dallas with a chance to take a 10-point lead. That was a very impressive opening drive to begin the second half.
Yeah, it sure was. They were able to take advantage of some things that they were unable to do in the first half. Primarily getting the ball to Des Bryant with some of the one-on-one looks.
Here the Cowboys, as obviously they're taking a look at it upstairs just to make sure and review. Every scoring play is reviewed in the NFL. There's no doubt about that. Point out there is good. So the interference call on a 3rd and goal from the 5 puts it at the 1. They punch it in from there, much to the delight of Jason Garrett and the Cowboys. It's a 10-0 lead.
Today's game on Fox is sponsored by Southwest Airlines. Find our fares online only at southwest.com. By Miller Lite, it's not just a good time, it's Miller time. By Chevrolet, find new roads. And by Pizza Hut, prep for game day by ordering online from Pizza Hut. Make it great.
They're like a little high school football.
Pretty good game yesterday from what I understand.
Yep. Friends coming away a big winner in that one. A touchdown drive spanning 66 yards. Cowboys getting the kick to begin the second half and turning it into a touchdown. And a 10-0 lead. Can the Eagles get it started on offense the way Bryant the Cowboys have done to begin this second stanza? Very un-Eagle-like first half offensively. Had the ball 8 times, 107. Missed a 60-yard field goal try. And what they had 2 snaps the entire half in Dallas territory.
This is an Eagle offense that came into this game #1 in terms of plays of 20 yards or more. And their longest play today is just 16 yards.
Very quiet first half for the NFL's leading rusher was Sean McCoy. 9 carries, 16 yards for McCoy.
We heard Pam Oliver talk about the 2-huddle system the Cowboys ran in practice to try to simulate going up against this up-tempo offense, and they've done a nice job.
Bulls looking around. Flag down. Still looking. And it's dropped by McCoy. We brought up earlier that Jay Glazer reported about, the groin injury to Foles a couple of weeks ago. Was not listed on the injury report at all this week.
Holding, offense, number 69, 10-yard penalty, replay, second down.
Now, he took a couple of shots in the first half, which could be the reason he appears to not be moving well right now. He doesn't look like he's operating at 100%.
The report is that the Eagles are saying that he's okay, but clearly, we've seen him. He has not. Like I said, hey, he's not a runner, but he hasn't moved as well as you would expect. I don't think he's seeing the field very well. More importantly, Tom.
McCoy up to the original line of scrimmage at the 20.
Right now, you look at this ball game, and Eagles defensively have played well. Now they allow the Cowboys the first possession to start this half to go right down the field, come away with a touchdown, but they've been good, and they're only going to hold up for so long. And the Cowboys look like they've maybe got some things figured out. That the Eagles, if they're going to stay in this game, this is a big drive for them.
2 of 10 on 3rd down. This is 3rd and 10. And Foles still on his feet. And he nearly completed what in essence was a Hail Mary to Jason Avant. It is 3-and-out to begin the second half for Philly on offense.
Well, the Cowboys aren't doing anything exotic. You know, I mean, they're just playing man coverage. Safety's in the middle of the field. And, you know, whether it's Deshaun Jackson or somebody else, somebody's got to get open and make a play. And then Nick Foles has got to find the open guy and then deliver a catchable football. But there's no question that between the 11 guys out there on the field, they've not been able to get anything going offensively.
And now a very short punt. Harris falling down as he makes a fair catch at the 41. So good field position for the Cowboys, who lead 10-0. 3-and-out on their first possession here in the second half. Cowboys took the second half kickoff the length of the field, scoring a touchdown. And now Tony Romo and the Cowboys start this drive from their own 41.
It'll be interesting to see what defensive coordinator Bill Davis elects to do on this possession. Continue to do what he's done or give a little bit of help out here to Des Bryant.
That is Witten. And he's dragged down after a gain of 8.
Yeah, so the Eagles defensively come right out, and they give help to Des Bryant with Kerry Williams and the safety working his way, which is what you would expect. They got things going. Des Bryant became more a part of the offense on the last possession for the Cowboys. What does Romo do? He comes underneath then to Witten. So, you know, if you're going to take away the outside guys, and then you've got to then deal with Jason Witten, who can work the middle of the field as well as anybody.
642 Patrick. Kill, 59, hurry up, Brian.
Great protection, looking down the sideline, and incomplete. Let's check in with Joel Klatt back in LA.
Thank you, Tom. Let's go to New York, where Geno Smith, rolling to his right, trying to find somebody, tucks it himself, finds the end zone. Tom, it's 24-21 Jets. Jets.
We'll go back and take a look at that last play. Double move on the outside to Bryant, and Romo hasn't been as sharp as he normally is either. If he throws this ball out in front in play, easy touchdown for the Cowboys. We've seen Tony miss some throws that he's not normally missing either.
The Eagles need a play. And Romo scrambling around across the middle. And are they saying that is a catch? They are. The first of the day by Miles Austin. In fact, that is his first catch since week 3 when he injured his hamstring.
You got to stay on the upside on Tony Romo, because if you level off, then he's able to spin out. He finds Miles Austin working away from him with a big first down.
Well, Chip Kelly had a chance after the injury timeout to Brandon Boykin, who, by the way, is okay, was able to get up and leave the field.
And here's the end of that play, Tom, and the ball comes out at the end, and the official didn't catch it. They ruled this a completed pass. And that's why Romo was trying to get to the line and get the ball snapped, but Chip Kelly is going to have to use a challenge on this call. It's going to be ruled incomplete.
Kelly is 0 for 2 on challenges this season. His first year, obviously, as head coach in the NFL.
The guy upstairs who helps advise him is Pat Shurmur, who had been the head coach in Cleveland for a couple of years and had also served as the quarterback coach here in Philadelphia prior to going to St. Louis as the offensive coordinator for a few years with Sam Bradford.
Well, again, there is a challenge. The ruling on the field is a completed pass to Miles Austin. If it is overruled, Dallas will be punting, or at least one would assume. It would be a 4th down and 2. It's taking a long time.
Yeah, you'd like to, hey, with these challenges anymore, I mean, a lot of times we say, hey, this is what's going to happen, and it doesn't always work that way. I can't imagine that this ruling is upheld.
After review, it's an incomplete pass. The receiver did not have full possession of the ball prior to the ball touching the ground. 4th and 2 on the 49-yard line. Please reset the game clock at 6:59.
So the Cowboys will indeed punt it.
Well, that's a good job defensively by the Eagles, because the Cowboys, they got the ball with good field position, and they did some good things on that prior possession when they got the touchdown, and for them to be able to hold up and not give any more points up with an offense that hasn't been able to do anything, that was big to keep them in this ball game.
And now Chris Jones set to punt it away. Morris Johnson signals for a fair catch. Well, Troy, obviously you had a Hall of Fame career, so you had a lot more good times and bad times, but there had to be games where, your team offensively was struggling, and you played on a lot of very good offensive teams, but I mean, is there anything you can do outside of, some serious overhauling of the X's and O's to all of a sudden get it right?
Well, I think you try to give him some easy throws. The problem is the way the Cowboys are playing, they're up in these guys' faces. They're playing, pretty good coverage, that there aren't a lot of easy throws, but there are some guys that are open. I mean, Nick Foles has had guys to get the ball to. He's just unable to find him, and when he hasn't gotten the ball delivered accurately.
And not a good throw there. And he was not being pursued. Yes, he was initially flushed out of the pocket, but he had plenty of time to plant and make this throw.
He had plenty of time, and these are not difficult throws for any quarterback, or should not be, but he just has not, and it's surprising. Like I said, he coming into this game had completed 67% of his passes, but he's just been off.
McCoy up to the 23-yard line. It'll bring up another 3rd down.
Hey, and I think you got to give this Dallas defense some credit too. They've been a maligned group and have given up a lot of yardage, and people questioning what they're about. And this defensive front, were they going to be able to hold up against this running attack by the Eagles? And they've been outstanding.
4-man rush. Thrown right into double coverage. Lee was there, Scandrick was there, and it is 3 and out.
Well, you can see the crossing route, and you got to be able to see then what's out in front. So initially you think you've got Deshaun Jackson one-on-one on a crossing route, but they're going to be looking for those things in 3rd and medium, 3rd and short. The guy who really had a chance was Brent Selleck once again going to the corner route, but it's sometimes is to equate it to basketball for Nick Foles. Sometimes the shot is dropping, and sometimes it's not.
Fair catch for Harris all the way back to the 32. Getting shut out. Does Chip Kelly even contemplate Matt Barkley with Vic out today? The old Bounty Bowl game, right?
That was my rookie year on Thanksgiving. First time I faced the Eagles. Yeah, it was Bounty Bowl and Buddy Ryan, and I'm still a little disappointed. I didn't have much of a bounty. I think it was $100 or something was all it was. But that's what made me laugh last year with all that discussion about Bounty Gate in New Orleans. I mean, the league was promoting that game as Bounty Bowl back in '89.
And they were going after him, our illustrious producer Richie Zions. They were going after A to Z, Aikman to Zendejas. First down throw, and that'll be a gain of 12 on the catch made by Terrence Williams. Romo's starting to warm up. He had the drop ball by Miles Austin that would have kept the last drive alive. Randall has been at least a threat in the run game. Maybe not DeMarco Murray kind of numbers.
Yeah, he's not going to be much of a threat in terms of breaking anything. He doesn't have that kind of speed. He doesn't have DeMarco Murray type speed, but he's been solid.
95 to the right.
First down, and Romo too high on the attempt to win. Will never be without football. Good coverage of every NFL game on NFL Mobile. Well, star NFL to download it right now.
I'll tell you what, Tom. I mean, we talked about it coming into the game. The improvement that we have seen in recent games from this Eagles defense, and Bill Davis. If you had told him coming into this game with 5 minutes to play in the third quarter, he would have held the Cowboys to 10 points. He would have taken that all day long. I mean, he's got to feel really good. But once again, there's a lot of pressure on this defense on this drive.
Randall dives forward right at the 50. So a big down now for Bill Davis's defense. 3rd down and 3.
Yeah, and that's where this Eagles defense has been so good today. I mean, the Cowboys coming into this game on 3rd down had been good. And Bill Davis talked about it on Friday. Said, hey, we've got to be better. We've got to be better on 3rd down. They've been outstanding in this game on this down.
Philly needs something, anything, just to give this team a spark. What a hit delivered by Wolf, but Bryant hangs on to the football. Both slow to get up.
Well, Earl Wolf, the rookie safety, he's working that side at the snap of the ball. He knew where Des Bryant was. He starts cheating that way, and so he got a pretty good beat on Bryant, not until after he picks up the 1st down, but certainly delivers some punishment at the end of the play. And that's questionable. You see the helmet there go. I mean, that could have been hit on a defenseless receiver, and probably should have been because of the helmet-to-helmet contact.
Wolf has to leave the game. Bryant on the sideline as well. Kurt Coleman, who was a starter at safety the last 3 years, checks in for the first time, number 42. Romo had called for timeout, was granted timeout before the snap.
You better make sure you got the timeout. You talked about it from last week.
Dallas. They're first.
When Drew Brees was trying to call a timeout and didn't get it. I mean, if he doesn't get the timeout there and he's walking off, that's a live ball.
Next week, Fox NFL Sunday double dip. Cowboys will go to the Motor City, take on Matthew Stafford and the Lions, and Peyton Manning and the Broncos host Robert Griffin III and the Washington Redskins in America's Game of the Week. All begins with a Fox NFL kickoff show, 11 a.m. Eastern on Fox Sports 1. And then Fox NFL Sunday, noon Eastern, here on Fox.
It doesn't get any easier for the Cowboys, as you said. Next week playing the Detroit Lions, and a team that is 4-2 coming into today. They've got their hands full right now at home against Cleveland. And a lot of these teams from one week to the next, you don't know what team you're going to get from one week to the next, and heck, none of them are easy.
Of course, the Eagles will have the Giants for the 2nd time already this year next week. Redskins, by the way, are beating Chicago today at home. That is a 1-score game late in the 3rd. Receiver fell down, Des Bryant. 2nd and 10. Speaking of the Redskins and the Bears, how about it, Joel Klatt?
Yeah, Tom, let's go to Washington, and RG3 leads them right down the field. Roy Halou Jr. takes it in from 3 yards out, and the Redskins up 31-24 over the Bears. Back to Philly, Tom.
Here's the crossing route. That's what they've been doing. They've been D'Amico Ryans when they're looking up Des Bryant when he runs that crossing route, and they haven't always been able to hit him like they were on that play.
Romo lays it off to Randall out of the backfield, and he's shoved out of bounds at the 35-yard line. Third down and 3 coming up.
This is the 3rd down that clearly is important for both teams. If you're Dallas and you pick up this first down, you're getting points on the drive. And for Philadelphia, they need to try to make a stop and force Dallas to make a decision whether they're going to try a long field goal or go for it on fourth down or pooch one deep into their territory.
See the play clock. They just get it off. And a flag is down, and Kerry Williams got tangled up with Des Bryant.
Well, the ball was being thrown. Kerry Williams, you're going to see, and Des Bryant really slips more than anything else.
There's 2 fouls on the play. They'll offset. Illegal contact, defense, number 26. Illegal use of hands, hands to the face, 65. They'll offset. We'll replay, third down.
I almost wonder if that ball was tipped. Doesn't matter now with the offsetting penalties.
It would if it was tipped, and then there wouldn't be the penalty on the Eagles, on Kerry Williams. But Ronald Leary, the left guard, is who got called for the Cowboys. And I didn't see it live when it happened, Tom, but you look down there when the ball was thrown, and Kerry Williams had Des Bryant in a takedown. And then you take a closer look at it, and you see that really Des Bryant just slipped trying to come out of the route.
So third down and 3. Ball at the Eagles' 35-yard line, and Romo out of the shotgun. Intercepted. That's D'Amico Ryans with Romo to beat. First big turnover of the game. Romo threw the interception on the Hail Mary. The final play of the opening half, but this could turn into a big one.
Well, here you got Philip Tanner. He's the one who's going out on the route. It's going to be D'Amico Ryans who's locked up in man coverage. And he's able to intercept just a poorly thrown ball then by Tony Romo. He comes out. He's just trying to dump it off to Tanner, a ball that's behind him. And that's really the break that Philadelphia has been hoping for, to get the ball down in this kind of field position. They haven't been able to do it offensively. The defense makes a big play for them.
First down. Fake it to McCoy. And looking for Jackson in the end zone. And what a play made by J.J. Wilcox to bat it away.
They ran this play last week against Tampa Bay, and they scored a touchdown on it. They got Jackson in the slot position, and if you're able to throw this ball to the other pylon, away from Wilcox, you got a shot, but they just ran out of real estate, so he's not able to stretch that ball. Foles wasn't as much as he would like because of the end line, and Wilcox, as a result, able to make a play.
McCoy. That'll be a first down inside the 20. By far the deepest penetration of this entire game offensively for the Eagles. And Deshaun Jackson needing some help getting off the field.
Deshaun Jackson, he's just trying to block, and like Bruce Carter, he's backing up, and he steps then on the foot of Deshaun Jackson.
Looked like Harriman's almost blocked Carter right into Jackson as they took a look at his right foot, right ankle. We'll be back. Certainly a pronounced limp over there as Jackson right here has Carter step on his right foot, right ankle.
Here's that other play by J.J. Wilcox, being able to come over and make a play on that ball. Really an outstanding job on his part, but the bigger concern right now is Deshaun Jackson and whether or not he's going to be able to return to this ball game.
Of course, the ultimate concern is trying to get on the scoreboard as they are down 10-0. First down at the 20. Foles looking to the end zone. Had a wide open Jason Avant, and that ball is intercepted. That ball somehow, some way made contact with Jason Avant and appeared to pop into the air.
Well, we'll take a look. I thought it hit the ground, but it's whether or not his hands were under the ball when it came up. Jason Avant was wide open in the end zone. That's going to be a hard one to really tell exactly what happened, Tom. I think if they had ruled that incomplete, it probably stays. Hard to tell by that shot whether or not the ball actually does hit the ball or hit the ground. But I mean, Nick Foles has Jason Avant wide open in the end zone. You just got to deliver a
Previous
throw.
play will be reviewed.
It looked to me like his left hand was under the ball and that the ball never touched the ground. You see how open Jason Avant was. You just got to deliver the ball, and you know what initially looked like an incomplete pass is, it appears now, is going to be Dallas Cowboys possession.
Well, the question was the nose of the football. He saw that hand underneath it, but did the nose of the football hit the ground right as it made contact with the hands of Jason Avant? You know, it's ruled an interception. The question is there enough to overturn it?
Yeah, so you're looking at this with the D'Amico Ryans interception. You're in field goal range, and if you're the Eagles, you're saying, all right, if at worst we make this a one possession game and settle for a field goal. And when that play unfolded with Jason Avant as open as he was, it looked like it was a sure touchdown. Another errant throw by Nick Foles, but does the ball hit the ground?
The more I watch it, I thought the front edge right there, when it comes in, I thought the front edge of the ball hit the ground. But tough to tell.
Just by the way that the ball pops up,
yeah.
It's hard to imagine it not hitting the ground. But is there something there that you can conclusively see? Right there, I think, right there, it looks like the tip does hit the ground, Tom, and I don't know. Flip a coin.
I hear
See
you.
what's going to happen here.
Boy, I'm glad somebody else has that job.
This is the biggest play in the game up to this point.
Well, Mike Pereira's watching back in our studios in Los Angeles. Mike, can you add any more to this from what you're seeing?
Well, I mean, they're doing exactly what you're doing here, trying to say, does the ball touch the ground whatsoever? And on this shot right here, does the nose of the ball, Tom, as you referred to, did it actually touch the ground? Because if it does, then it is incomplete if any part of it's on the ground. But it is one of these, to me, that's just so close. I hate to see replay get so involved to turn it over, but it's just a matter of a fact now. Did that nose of the ball hit the ground? If I look at it without any bias of what was called on the field, I think it actually does hit the ground.
Yeah.
And the way it pops out and turns over, to me, kind of makes it look even more like it does.
Here we go. We're about to find out the verdict.
After reviewing the play, it's an incomplete pass. The back nose of the football touched the ground prior to popping out. With no possession, by rule, it's an incomplete pass.
I think they got it right, Tom. The last shot that we showed, it to me looked like the hands were separated a bit. The ball hit the ground. As Mike Pereira said, it's a moot point if Nick Foles delivers the football, the way it should have been delivered. That should have been an easy completion for a touchdown. You can see him there in the slot position as he goes to the corner, and how much field you have to work with to make that throw. You don't even have to make a great throw. You just got to get it somewhere in the vicinity.
Seems like there have been a lot of those throws where you almost had time, Troy, to plant your back right foot and get a little something on it. And Foles a couple of times has missed guys wide open, just sort of drifting along. Deshaun Jackson is back into the game as they give it to McCoy. He slips inside the 15, down to the 13. It brings up third down.
Well, and what normally you would see from Philadelphia is, okay, hey, we've got a quarterback that's struggling a little bit. He's not seeing the field great. He's not delivering a lot of great throws. So, hey, let's get this running game going. But they've not been able to get that going with LaShawn McCoy. That is atypical for this team this year.
They give it to him on third down. He is very close to a first down. No signal given yet. Oh my, would this be an interesting call if this is just short? It is right on the line.
Well, I think if I'm Chip Kelly, I'm asking for a measurement on this. If nothing else, just to kind of gather my thoughts on what exactly I want to call. And a lot of times you can say, hey, I want a measurement on this to make sure it's not a first down, or if nothing else, to know exactly how far we have to go so we can make a decision. But not surprised that Chip Kelly elects to run the ball on both second and third down to try to pick a first down up.
Oh, he didn't get it. Now what?
Well, there's no decision, I don't think. I mean, to me, they're not running anybody out, but I mean, you have a chance right here to get it back to a one-possession game, and I think you have to do that as much as you want to go for it here on fourth down, but Chip wants to go for it, and he's going to go for it.
All right, 4th and inches, and they're working out of the shotgun 4th and inches.
He may try to draw him offside.
First down. There is a penalty flag down. Came in from the near sideline, the Philadelphia sideline. And I think the official just picked it up. I don't think there's a flag on the play.
Well, Todd Harrimans, who got called for a penalty earlier, he does a good job on that fourth down play of getting a little bit of movement, enough for McCoy then to get the first down.
So now first down and goal. McCoy, nowhere to go.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, there's no guarantee that Philadelphia comes away with a touchdown on this drive. They've taken the ball out of Nick Foles' hands since that last throw, and they've run it now 4 consecutive times.
They do not have to run another play before the end of the quarter, but that's not their nature. Second down and goal. Incomplete. Chased by both Hatcher and Wilbur. I don't know if that's a lost towel down on the field or whether there's a flag. A towel.
You see what the Cowboys are doing. They're in man coverage. Maybe if you're able to work the back line, but that's not where Foles was looking. There's some times where there's places to run, but whether it's the groin or just Foles not wanting to take off, he hasn't been able to take advantage of it.
Sacked all the way back at the 15-yard line. Selvey and Jarius win. And that will be the final play of the third quarter. 10-0 Dallas. Fox NFL Sunday returns after these messages and a word from your local Fox station. Very slow to get up after getting sacked was Nick Foles.
At the end of that play time, you can see Nick Foles' head gets popped pretty good going to the turf, and the official at the end of this, he checks with Foles, and he then signals over to the sideline. You better check him out. That's John Perry, the referee, and he could tell that Foles took a pretty good lick.
So now a field goal try for Alex Henry. He's hit on 13 of 16 this year. This will be a 31-yard attempt. And it just does sneak inside the left upright. So here we are, the first play of the fourth quarter, and the Eagles are on the scoreboard for the first time today. It is a 10-3 game. Of course, last night, Boston put Detroit down in Game 6 of the ALCS, and now we're on to the World Series. It begins on Wednesday, 7 Eastern, with a Fox Sports Live World Series special on Fox Sports 1, and then, of course, the entire World Series, 7:30 Eastern, only on Fox. Game 1 from Fenway Park, and Nick Foles is making his way to the Philadelphia locker room. And Matt Barkley, who has not taken an NFL snap. Of course, Michael Vick, remember, ruled out of this game with the hamstring injury he suffered a couple of weeks ago in a win over the Giants. Barkley beginning to get loose on the Eagles sideline.
Credit that Cowboys defense for, they get the ball, the Eagles do, in field goal range, and that's all the Cowboys defense gives up is 3 points.
That's up to the 27-yard line, and we check in back in Los Angeles with Joel Klatt.
All right, thanks, Tom. And points not a problem in Washington. Tied at 31 when RG3 goes 45 yards down the field to Aldrick Robinson from SMU, his first touchdown. 38-31 Redskins in Washington. Back to you, Tom.
How about that?
Right. Hey, I hope the Redskins save some points for us next week. They're going to have to do it again next week, facing Peyton Manning.
Well, you're not lying about that.
He's got a pretty good homecoming this afternoon in Indianapolis, doesn't he?
It's going to be something to see indeed. Play action, Romo on first down. Bryant across the middle. And that'll be a gain of 17 on first down for the Cowboys, with a 7-point lead just underway here in the fourth quarter. Remember now, they have Matt Barkley do the Eagles as a backup. Their emergency number 3 quarterback is the tight end James Casey.
Well, they could always go to the rookie right tackle Lane Johnson. He came into college as a quarterback at Kilgore College. If worse comes to worse. But Matt Barkley, you just wonder how much work he has gotten. He's gotten a little bit with Vick being down, but not much.
Randall out of the backfield. That'll be a pickup of 13 on first down.
And I'm talking about him getting work in practice. Of course, he's not played, but he in training camp you'd get some work, and then you get into the season, and a lot of places the number 2 guy doesn't even get any snaps. And that's why I say with Vick, at least with the injury, he's probably gotten a little bit of work over the last couple of weeks, but he's probably not going to be all that polished up in terms of the things that they're going to want him to do here in this fourth quarter.
Meanwhile, on that last completed pass, Tony Romo, 27,444 career passing yards, the most passing yards by any quarterback in his first 100 games going back to the Super Bowl era. That, you brought it up earlier. I think you and I were both stunned when we saw that had a chance of happening.
Yeah, hey, I'm well aware of the things that he's been able to do. I've said it for many years. He's a special talent. He can do a lot of things, and the game as we know it today, relative to the Dan Marinos and those guys, the numbers are going through the roof.
Bryant able to pick up a first down at the Philadelphia 32-yard line.
We saw the Eagles on that kickoff. They just, rather than kick it deep, they just, pooched it kind of down the field, and I guess not wanting to see a return from Dwayne Harris. But the Cowboys come right down on this possession, and now they're right back in field goal range with a chance to answer to the 3 points that Philadelphia just put up to at least make it back, put it back in a 2-possession game.
Bryant, his third 100-yard receiving game of this season, the 9th in his career. First time he's ever done it against the Eagles. Randall off the left side. No room.
Well, we've said it. The defenses in this game have been really good, and that is sure a surprise. And I'm especially surprised that the Eagles haven't been able to do more offensively with the possessions that they've had. Nick Foles obviously has not been on his game, but they've not been able to get LaShawn McCoy much room to run either.
Second and 8. And Witten run out of bounds right at the first down marker. And he got there.
Hey, Tom, that's as good as it gets right there. Jason Witten, who's in the tight end position, he's going to run the out route, and you've got Nate Allen in coverage, and he's in good coverage. But Tony Romo lays it out there perfectly. Jason Witten goes up and makes the play, and you know, how many times have we seen that connection over the years?
Jason Witten played for his grandfather at Elizabethton, Tennessee High School. In fact, the high school now, the address is on Jason Witten Way.
Well, good for him, because it should be Jason Witten Way. He's done a lot for that school, and he's done a lot for the community.
Randall, ball on the ground. They say incomplete. Ooh. Second down and 10 at the 21-yard line. Still a long way to go. But the way obviously both of these offenses have gone today, you put a team in a 2-possession game, and that could be a tall order with 10:44 left. The 15. That's Boykin on the coverage. He had to leave earlier, you may remember, with an injury.
Well, Cole Beasley in the slide, you can see how quick he is, and how, you know, when he comes out of that break, it's just he's just one of those guys that's really impossible to cover. He's a kid who played at Southern Methodist University there in Dallas, Texas. He quit the team last summer, a year ago, for a couple of days, and Jason Garrett kept the door open. He came back and joined the team, and he's positioned perfectly for this team. He really is a terrific young player that creates some real matchup problems no matter who's trying to cover him.
Third down. Romo gets it away to Beasley, and that will convert on third down into a first down. And Romo very slow to get up. Took a big hit from Brandon Graham.
Brandon Graham with a free shot. Ball comes out, but not without some punishment first. And you know, that's a throw that's behind. It tells you how good Cole Beasley is in that slot position. The last two throws really have not been great throws. I mean, they've been a little bit off target, but because he's been able to create so much separation from the defender, it hadn't had to be a great throw. And he's been able to make the adjustment to the catch.
It's been a money drive here for Dallas.
Hurry up! Go ahead!
Showing up better than 5 minutes, and it's capped off with a touchdown to Terrence Williams. Third consecutive game with a touchdown for the rookie out of Baylor, Terrence Williams.
Well, Fletcher thought that he could take away the slant by alignment. He plays inside technique, thinking that that's then going to keep Terrence Williams from running the slant route. He's in off coverage. Terrence Williams runs the route with speed. That's what beats defenders in this league, and an easy touchdown for the Cowboys.
Been a record-setting day on multiple fronts for Tony Romo. One after is good. Romo has just tied his team record, his own team record, throwing a touchdown in now 20 consecutive games. That is a big-time drive. After the Eagles had drawn within a touchdown, and now a 2-touchdown lead.
Today's game on Fox is sponsored by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. By Bud Light, official beer sponsor of the NFL. And by Subway Restaurants. Try the Tuscan Chicken Melt today.
Let's check in downstairs on the condition of Nick Foles with Pam Oliver.
Well, Tom, after that very hard hit at the end of the third quarter, Eagles quarterback Nick Foles remains in the locker room. He's undergoing the required NFL protocol as he's being evaluated for a head injury. Foles' return is questionable for the game.
All right, Pam, thank you. So that means we're about to witness the NFL regular season debut of former University of Southern California Trojan Matt Barkley. Much was made about Barkley getting a shot, along with Michael Vick and Nick Foles going into training camp. 4th round pick, about to take the field in the National Football League for the first time. First place in the NFC East on the line here today. Cowboys and the Eagles coming in identical marks at 3-3. Now we see the all-time leading passer in Pac-12 conference and University of Southern California football history. Matt Barkley, and he'll come out slinging it. First down throw to Avant is a first down. Of course, Barkley was everybody's pick to be maybe even the first pick in the draft before he injured his shoulder his senior year for the Trojans, and it really dropped his stock. He fell all the way down to the 4th round, was a 98th player chosen overall. Barkley, a 4-year starter at SC, and throws the interception, and that's Carter. And he tiptoes along the sidelines and steps out of bounds. There is a flag down on the field all the way up to the 25-yard line, which is 5 yards beyond the line of scrimmage.
Offside defense, number 56.
How about that?
5-yard penalty will result in an automatic first down.
You see right here is the call. You know, Ertz, he moves, but it's only because of the movement into the neutral zone. But Vega, who was just picked up, and Bruce Carter makes a nice play on the ball, a guy that obviously Matt Barkley never even saw. You know, Barkley, you can go through preseason games and practice, and things are happening at warp speed for him in this one. It's you know, try to keep throws simple as best you can to the outside.
Cooper hangs onto the football up to the 48-yard line, and that'll be a first down. There's still a lot of time left in this game. We're just under 9 minutes.
Sometimes when you're over there on the sidelines and you're not planning on playing, and you know, a lot of times these guys, that's when they have their most success. They don't have time to think and worry about the fact they're going to go in the game. All of a sudden they're just thrust into the action. But Barkley, a couple nice completions. It was a good throw, good read on the last play.
That's their longest play from scrimmage in the game today. 17-yard completion. He might have a free play here. There is a flag down. Looked like there might have been an early start once more by the Cowboys.
Yeah, it looked like they may have got Jason Vega again.
Defense, number 56, 5-yard penalty, replay, first down.
That's who they got.
I doubt that Barkley is doing anything, you know, at the line that, as far as hard count goes. Vega just trying to get a jump on the ball and get back there and hit the young rookie.
Talk about all the big plays from this Philadelphia offense. Still looking for their first one today. Deshaun Jackson. And the crowd looking for a late hit. A flag that is not thrown, but it is a first down catch to the 41-yard line.
Well, the ball's coming out on Barkley's hand. You know, he's not back there holding it as we saw throughout the game by Nick Foles. The other thing, because the Eagles run a hurry-up offense all the time, this is nothing out of the ordinary for this offense.
McCoy spun down to the 36-yard line.
As you said, Tom, still plenty of time. I mean, they're able to operate even though they're in a hurry-up mode because of down 14 points. This is the way they play every game throughout the game. But more importantly, they have all of the plays at their disposal. So they're just running offense like they normally would at any other time.
Set, ready, go!
Off the fingertips of South. Third down coming up. Clock stops. 7:14 left.
They had a chance with Selleck running across and just a ball that was just far enough out in front of him. He was unable to make a play. But you know, right now I've got to believe that Chip Kelly, if they don't pick up the first down here, he's going for it.
Set. Ready, go.
Barkley steps up, and it is intercepted by Sean Lee. Inside the 40, tackled to the 38-yard line. So a prior interception overturned on a penalty. That one by Carter. This one will stand into the arms of Lee. And now the Cowboys with a chance to put this one on ice. Many of the Philly fans on their way out of here.
Today's game is sponsored by the Galaxy Note 10.1. The next big thing is here.
Some long faces here in Philadelphia. Many coming here expecting a shootout. It's been anything but that. And after the interception thrown by Barkley, Tony Romo and the Dallas Cowboys take over the Philadelphia 38, and they're going to start chewing up clock.
We'll go back and take a look at the interception, and Matt Barkley, as he works back to his right, you're going to see that you lose sight then of the underneath coverage in zone. We saw the interception earlier to Bruce Carter that got called back. Sean Lee works underneath this one. The windows are very small in the NFL relative to what they are in college, and that's some of that spacing, and then identifying who are the people who can take throws away. That will come for Matt Barkley. For Sean Lee, he's been making those plays since he came into the league. They missed him last year, not only his leadership, but also his playmaking ability. He only played 6 games last season, but it just seems that each and every week he's doing something that's impactful in the game.
Randall a couple of yards shy of a first down. Cowboys would like to think that, you know, now that they have Lee healthy again. You may remember Carter got hurt last year as well and wound up injured on Thanksgiving Day, missed the remainder of the season. So 2 of their very talented young linebackers. I mean, they were wrecked by injuries last year, as they were the early part of this year. We talked about their defensive line. But you never know it talking to Rod Marinelli.
No, he's one of the really great coaches in the National Football League, and again, what a great job he has done with that defensive line.
Bobbled snap, and Romo will just fall on top of it to make sure back at the 35.
But I'll tell you, Tom, I mean, really, if you take a step back from this game, both of these defenses really had outstanding games. I mean, we expected this to be an offensive shootout with nobody being able to slow anyone down, and it was the complete opposite. Dallas, Monty Kiffin's done a great job, you know, and paybacks, I guess, because of him getting shellacked as defensive coordinator at USC against Chip Kelly's Oregon Ducks. But they came in here today and did an excellent job. And even Philadelphia, they've got something to build on defensively also. Bill Davis did a good job in this game. They just didn't get any help from their offense. You know, to hold Dallas to 17 points when they came into this game averaging 30 points a game, second best in the National Football League, is really good.
Dallas going to punt it after a timeout was spent by Philadelphia. Eagles have 2 left. Johnson will let it bounce and down at the 2. .5:17 to play. Eagles trailing by 14. You know, they wouldn't call it a quarterback controversy. They called it a quarterback conversation.
No, that conversation's over now. You know, I mean, when Michael Vick's healthy, he will be the quarterback for the Eagles.
Well, they handed off on first down inside their own 5 after Foles had played so brilliantly in the come from behind win over the Giants 2 weeks ago in relief of Vick, and last week threw for 3 touchdowns, ran for another in the win over Tampa Bay. You know, a lot of conversation about, well, what if Foles plays well today and gets a win over the Cowboys in the division. Would that then force a hand of Chip Kelly to stay with the hot hand of Nick Foles, or does he go back to Vic once Vic is ready to play?
I think you look at it, 2 weeks ago after the Giants game, Chip Kelly said, yeah, when Vic's healthy, he's our starter. Last week after the win against Tampa, he started to hedge his bet a little bit, but I think Foles' performance today, not certainly based on the injury that he suffered, Michael Vick will be back in the lineup.
Third down. Pretty nice throw right there to get a first down by Barkley.
Really, I think that, if you're Chip Kelly, Michael Vick, as you said earlier, he's 33 years old. So, even if Foles had played well today, the question really isn't is it Michael Vick, is it Nick Foles? The question to me was, is Nick Foles the guy going forward into the future? And that's what they have to answer. And because Vick only has a few more years.
Across the middle of 5. Touchdown to the 28, and we check in with Joel Klatt back in L.A.
All right, Tom, we go to Washington. Cutler was out. Josh McCown, he's been great. Finds Martellus Bennett, 7-yard score, 41-38. Bears up under 4 minutes. Tom.
That is a wild one. Incomplete on first down. That's right through the hands of Deshaun Jackson.
A really nice job by Matt Barkley stepping up in the pocket and delivering it. For a guy, like I said, his first action coming off the bench, wasn't expected to be playing today. He's really made some nice throws. You mentioned his shoulder injury that he had his senior year. There were some that were saying that it may still be a factor, and how he's throwing the football from what they've seen of him in Philadelphia.
Somehow avoids a sack and then just throws it up for grabs, and it's into the arms of Barry Church.
Bill Parcells would call those indiscriminate throws that you've got to take out of your game, and him just throwing it up, trying to make a play as best he can. See the pressure in the pocket, and he does a good job of navigating that, but really nobody in the area. He just throws it up, and those are the type of throws you just obviously can't make.
Caesar Rayford, another one of those guys along that defensive line. That time Rayford had Barkley around the leg.
Talking about Matt Barkley, there's some that say, well, Chip Kelly and his offense, he really needed a running quarterback. I think he pretty much acknowledges you don't need that by the drafting of Matt Barkley. Matt Barkley's not a runner, and yeah, they got him in the 4th round, but they would never even have used a 4th round pick on him if they thought that you have to have a running quarterback in order to be effective.
Let's take a peek ahead to what is down the line for both of these teams. We begin with the Eagles. They'll be at home against the Giants, a team they've already beaten once this year. Then they go to Oakland, they go to Green Bay, another division game before they hit their bye week, the week of Thanksgiving. And you got to believe there's a good chance that Michael Vick could return as early as next week.
Well, he had said that if he was a drop back passer, he could have played this week. So he knows there's a lot more to his game than just throwing the football. There's a good chance he'll be back next.
Now, meanwhile, for the Cowboys, that is not going to be an easy one next weekend against the Lions, although the Lions just lost on the final play of the game at home against Cincinnati. Then they play Minnesota. Boy, at New Orleans, that's a tough one. And then after a bye week, you go on the road against the Giants.
Well, I think all these teams, especially in the NFC East, I don't think any of these games are going to be easy. When you look at what the teams in the East have done against teams outside the division, it hasn't been good. A lot of their wins have come against each other, and this is a nice win to come in here to Philadelphia. A divisional game that, looking at it, coming in, you'd say, okay, it's going to be Dallas or Philadelphia that wins this division. Washington, maybe they climb back in it. They're losing right now to Chicago. They've only won one game. Giants aren't going to get back into it. So, what exactly is in store for the Cowboys going forward? But I think they're all going to be tough for all of these teams. You start projecting, I think you find yourself getting in a lot of trouble.
Well, they throw it. What a safe throw into the arms of the rookie Terrence Williams.
Yeah, I will say, Tom, though, as it relates to Philadelphia and Chip Kelly, we were there on Friday. We've been here over the weekend, and you walk into that building, their facility, their training facility, NovaCare facility, it's a different feel than it's been the last couple of years. And turning something around, these organizations and the way you do things is a challenge. But I think guys are excited. I think employees are excited over there for the things that Chip Kelly is doing and what the future holds for this team. This is a disappointing loss for the Philadelphia Eagles. Losing's bad enough, but just the way that the offense didn't come out and play the way that they've been playing throughout this season, and to hold Dallas to 17 points. But it sure looks to me like Chip Kelly has got everyone excited, and they can build on this as they move through the rest of this season and then on into the future.
Chip Kelly, 49 years old. He's never been married. I mean, he'll tell you that he is married to the game of football. The amount of time that he spends in that training facility, morning, noon, and night, going all the way back to his days at the University of New Hampshire. Damaris Johnson handling the punt back at the 10-yard line, and we will hand it off to Joel Klatt, standing by in Los Angeles.
Thank you, Tom, and we head up to Detroit. Mike Nugent, the former Buckeye, game-winning 54-yard field goal, and the Bengals beat the Lions 27-24. Of course, Dallas will be in Detroit next week on Fox. Tom.
Oh, Joel, I like the way you said that. A former Buckeye. Mike Nugent blasting that 54-yarder.
It's interesting as you look at that. Chicago leading right now against Washington. They would take over the division lead if they're able to hang on.
There's another division, Troy, and obviously you've seen the Packers already this season, but I think that on any given week, and maybe they're all getting like this anymore, but on any given week you could make an argument for the Bears, for the Lions, and for the Packers is the best team in the NFC North. Barkley finds Riley Cooper, and that's out to the 38-yard line.
Well, that's what we do, right? I mean,
that's what we do.
Every week the opinions change around the league on teams based on what they did the previous week. And it's a nice throw here by Matt Barkley. He's thrown that now a few times to Riley Cooper on the dig route, and he's gotten the ball out on time and easy completions for him.
I'll tell you, all kidding aside, we were talking about that Detroit-Cincinnati game. That's a big win for Cincinnati. You go on the road and beat Matthew Stafford and the Lions at Ford Field there in Detroit. And now the Bengals sitting at 5-2. And with a chance, depending on the outcome later of Baltimore and Pittsburgh, the Bengals could have a 2-game lead in that AFC North. That is a franchise that has really gotten it turned around.
We had Cincinnati earlier in the year, Tom, and they're a good team. They've been in the playoffs the last couple of years. Need to do better when they get into January. Andy Dalton does, but they're solid. Mike Zimmer's done a great job of that defense, and as long as they play like they've been playing, they're going to have a chance to win a lot of football games.
Yep. We're in the 2-minute warning. The producer of today's game is Richie Zions, our director Rich Russo, our associate directors Jake Jollivet and Rich Gross. That catch is made for a first down by Ertz. Our broadcast associates Bentley Elliott and Alex Olson, our technical producer.
Prior to the pass, holding, defense, number 32, penalties declined. Result of the play, 1st and 10 Philadelphia.
Our technical producer Peter Chalveris, technical director Colby Bourgeois, and our audio mixer is Freddie Aldis. Thank our entire crew. Scott Snyder, our spotter. Tom Barbary, our statistician up here in the booth. Batted down at the 20-yard line. 1:47 to go.
I'm watching Matt Barkley throw. He's as I said, he's really makes some nice throws, and I questioned his shoulder, as to how healthy he's been. The criticism, I guess, coming out was how strong is his arm, but from what I've seen, I haven't seen anything to suggest he doesn't have enough arm strength to play in this league.
That one's run behind a bond. That's a nice catch to the 25, and once more we check on the excitement in D.C. with Joel Klatt.
Let's take you there, Tom. And Roy Halou Jr., his third touchdown of the day. Wonderful drive from RG3. 45-41, Tom.
Well, what a wild game that is. Riley Cooper. And that is a first down reception to the 11-yard line. How about that catch?
That's a great catch. They've kind of been methodically going down the field here. A lot of time coming off the clock. They score a touchdown here. They make it interesting with an onside kick.
Barkley to the end zone. Instead, it is intercepted by Brandon Carr, and that will tie a ribbon around this one.
They played zone coverage, and I think Matt Barkley was expecting it to be man coverage, and so Brandon Carr at the top, he sloughs, and he just reads Matt Barkley. The ball's thrown to the corner. He's right there to make a play, and that's what I talked about is just recognizing what the coverages are and then who the people are that take those routes away. On the corner route, if they're in zone, you've got to see that corner and his ability then to drop underneath that throw. But, those are looks, those are things that he'll continue to improve upon. This was a good outing for him, to be able to come out, get some game time experience, see some of those things. He'll be better the next time he has to take the field.
So now Romo and the Cowboys will run it out. It's a big win for Dallas. Coming on the road inside your division. A chance to go to 3-0 in the division. Cowboys have not started unbeaten in their division after 3 games since 2009, which not so coincidentally was the last time they went to the playoffs.
And you look at them this year, I mean, they had not yet won on the road. Philadelphia has always been a tough place to play, and so for them to come here, as you said, and win a road game, but more importantly win a road divisional game, certainly a big win, as you said, for the Cowboys.
And this will be a new franchise record on the other side of the equation for the Philadelphia Eagles. They have not won a home game since September the 30th of last year when they beat the Giants. So they have lost 9 straight home games. And that is a new franchise record. So the Dallas Cowboys will wake up tomorrow morning knowing they are all alone atop the NFC East. 17-3 the final. We'll be back to Philadelphia in a moment.